just had the good fortune to open up 2 jobs this summer at the J.R. Coleman Learning Center. Tom Thompson has opened them up. We have 2 students that are interviewing this week. They are both interested in early childhood education. So those kinds of opportunities we will keep hunting for you and look for. And if you're not interested in education, please listen because I have to tell you that you're going to hear about varied backgrounds here, and you're going to hear about people who have been in legal and are running schools and districts and so on and so forth. You could, again, and you are, the power is yours. You can do whatever you want as you grow up. And you'll see these examples right here. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Bruner, who will lead the discussion. And thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Venturella, Ms. Bruner. What I want to do right now is to have you look at the bios, which you've been doing all along, of each of the panelists that we have. And also, I would like for you to look at those questions, because we want to take full advantage of this opportunity. Now, I'm going to be running back and forth because this is going to be for you. This is going to be for you. This is about you. So you go through and ask the questions. So what I want to start off and do right now is I'm going to go down the line and I'm going to introduce each of them. But what I want them to do, is just share with you maybe why they went into education. Okay, why did they go into education? Understand in education, there's a wide range of job opportunities that are in that sort of career field. And so I tried to make it so that here we had a varied panelists so that you can see the wide array of things that you can go into. So I'm going to start on the far end, and I'm going to introduce first a Spanish teacher that we have here at Tempe Early College High School, and that is Carla Smith. And so, Mrs. Smith, could you please share why did you go into education?
I went to education. Okay, thank you. School was my safe place when I was a child, so that was where I wanted to be. And as I went through elementary school, high school, that was the place that made me the happiest. So I wanted to become a teacher because I had very good teachers to help me out when I was younger.
Thank you very much. And so next we have, it works as our business manager. You'll see it on his bio sheet. And this is Mr. Tad Ellsworth. And again, to you, kind of the question, why did you go into education?
Sure. I actually didn't start out going into education. My major was in public administration for my master's degree. But my dad was a teacher. And I was a 1991 graduate of Canton McKinley High School. A very proud graduate, worked for the city of Canton. When the opportunity came for me to come and work as business manager for my hometown school district, I couldn't pass it up. So that's why I'm here, and I have been for the last 12 years.
Thank you very much. Third person that we have on the panel is senior administrator. Her name is Mrs. Peggy Savage. And could you please tell us why did you go into education?
Hi everyone. I went into education because my teachers were so important to me in growing up. They really helped me survive and encouraged me along the way, and I just wanted to give back. And I loved English. I was an English teacher, and so it was a perfect combination to give back and talk about English all day with students, and I love the students.
Okay, thank you. And then we have our superintendent of Canton City School District, Adrian Ellison, is going to share with us. Mr. Ellison, share with us why did you go into education?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I wish it was an easy answer, but I actually don't have an easy answer. Unlike Peggy and others who came to the field through teaching, I came to education after being a lawyer, and so what I found was that I had a passion for education. Someone mentioned follow your passion, and so what I discovered is I had a passion for education and youth, and wanted to make a difference. So I transitioned from being a lawyer to coming into education.
Thank you very much. And then the next panelist that we have is works in cosmetology. She's a cosmetology teacher and is over in the Early College Wing. This is Erin Pond.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I went into education. Actually, my bachelor's degree is in public relations, and I went and worked for an ad agency for about 2 years. And to be perfectly honest, one day I was sitting there and I called my mother on the phone and I said, "I'm not making a difference." And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, none of this matters. I'm not doing anything worthwhile." She said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm going to go teach." She said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm serious. I think I'm going to go teach." And started on that pathway then, and started on the steps that I needed to follow through with to become a teacher. And I've been teaching here with Kansas City Schools. I've been teaching for 10 years. So this is my 10th year.
Thank you. Next person that we have is middle school principal. His name is Lionel Bush. So Mr. Bush, again, why did you go to education?
Hello everyone. Just as a few of the others had stated, I didn't originally start off in education, but later on I found out that it was so closely related to what I was doing since I was 21, which was coaching. So I got the opportunity to start taking education classes. That's when I started. I've been in education for the last 5 years.
Thank you. And finally, we have Mr. Spencer Garrity, who is an intervention specialist, new to the district. And have you go ahead and answer that same question. Why education?
Good afternoon. I really went to education because of my mom. In middle school, we were the latest school to start, so I had about 2 hours in the morning to kill. So I would go with mom to work at Harvard. She worked in a classroom for children with visual impairments and blindness. And those kids, you know, was so interested in working with them, just the way they learned was so different. And it was kind of a light bulb in my head that not everyone learns the same, not everyone goes through school the same way. So as I moved through high school, I began to see that more and more. Then I would go back to that room and see kids in my kindergarten remember me now in 5th grade. In addition, Mr. Shepard here at Early College really pushed me in that direction. I started off as a modern history major, then I did switch to the field of special education, just as my mom is right now.
Okay. So I wanted to do that so that you can hear them and hear about their passions. So you can use that as a launch pad to go ahead and ask questions. And now I'm going to turn that over to you. So you pop your hand up, I'll pass the mic over so that everybody can hear. And now we're opening the floor for any questions that you have.
Hello, how you guys doing? My name is Nicobian Thorne. I'm a junior here at Early College. My question is kind of towards anybody on the panel. My question is, when facing a big decision as a major decision that involves the student body and your staff, how often or how long do you let it sit in your mind or ask for help before actually making a decision? For example, a week, 2 months, or what do you do that helps you out better?
I'll answer that. Do I need to? Okay. I'm here. Hi, how are you? For me, especially because when I first started into teaching, I was a single teacher in a career tech program. Oftentimes there's 2 teachers in a career tech program and I was by myself. And anytime I had to make a big decision or something that I wasn't comfortable with, I had a lot of peers. I had a lot of people around me. I made some phone calls. I called other cosmetology teachers. I actually have a very nice relationship with the one that taught me just 18 years ago. And I kind of bounced those ideas off of other people instead of making it solely on my own. Was kind of my pathway. And I still do that. I still call and send emails and say, what do you think about this? And what do you think the outcomes are going to be if I do it this way before I move forward?
Hi, I love the collaboration piece. Sometimes when you make a decision, there are some very basic criteria that you always have to consider when it comes to students. And the first in my mind is safety. And so everything else goes from there, or the law, or, you know, things that are those are the very basic criteria to make decisions. And then if you have flexibility beyond that, that's when you start to tap into your colleagues and your creativity and your background knowledge, etc.
Chances are, if you're making a decision that affects a whole group, you're touching many branches of the tree. If you're talking about dealing with a whole group of students, just from the situation this year, then you're thinking about, well, how does this affect the parents? How does this affect, you know, guardians who they live with, transportation? You need to consider all those aspects rather than just the point of the decision.
For me, the decision matrix, the first thing you do is you decide, is this a good idea? And so that's a whole process that often involves stakeholders, people with interest in what you're doing. And the second decision, the second point that you have to get to is, can we afford to do it? The first question is it a good idea? But the second question is, can we afford to do it? And so that second question is often the thing that holds us up sometimes.
I'd like to say I'm kind of old-fashioned sometimes. I make a pros and cons list, just, you know, a T-chart, you know what that is. And one side pros, one side cons, and then whoever you're making the decision with, go through that and discuss how each one of those pros or cons will affect the people that, you know, is in the decision.
And what I like to add is just, you know, in education, when you make a decision, you have to, first and foremost, you have to think of what's in the best interest of the students. And then we go from there, as many have said, you know, you can talk over with your colleagues, but at the end of the day, it's what's in the best interest of the students.
Sometimes I actually talk it over with the student. I mean, sometimes it's kind of like, I'm thinking of this, and what do you think? And how do you think this is going to work? And sometimes we have that dialogue with the people that are affected by the decision.
Hi, my name is Courtney Dozier. I'm a sophomore. I attend Early College. This is a question for anybody on the panel. When you first got into education, what was your goal when you first came into education, or what did you hope to achieve? And did you achieve that goal yet, being an educator?
So I'll start. Growing up, I didn't desire to be a superintendent or grow up and say, you know, my goal one day is to grow up and be a superintendent. Which is really an important point, because what I would say, and I heard the conversation about the panel you had earlier, the key is to put yourself in position to achieve your goal, right? So you have to be ready for whatever opportunities present themselves to you and be prepared to seize the moment. And so for me, you know, I can't say that I had the goal of being a superintendent, but I'm at pretty much the height of what I want to be. And the reason for that is because I've had situations and circumstances that I was ready to and prepared for. There are two aspects of being prepared, though. One is your personal preparation, and then the other aspect is putting yourself in position where others see that you are ready to take on that next step or opportunity. And so both of those things combined allow you an opportunity to reach your goals. So, I would say always have a goal, but always be flexible and open-minded and open-ended about, seizing opportunities when they present themselves, because you never know where they're going to end up putting you, and you'll be surprised. There's a lot of great things to do in life, and sometimes people walk it straight down the line, but other people veer off and go to something that they never dreamed that they would be doing.
I had actually 3 very specific goals when I started with the district. When I started here in 2004, the district was about halfway through a $170 million building program. In fact, the building you're sitting in wasn't built yet. And so one very specific goal I had was to complete this building project, which we did finish. Of course, the maintenance and upkeep of all these buildings is ongoing, and that's something that we do every day. Another goal that was put in front of me actually by the superintendent who hired me, Diane Talarico, was to make peace with our labor unions. We have, for the support staff, they're all represented by collective bargaining unions. And there was some tension back then between the administration and those unions. And it was getting in the way of doing the business of helping our students. And so that was another goal, which we did succeed. That also is an ongoing process. Personalities change, circumstances change, and it can be difficult and it can be easy. And it's something that you go. And the other thing I had to do when I started here, the district at that point was in a very tough situation financially. And so I was asked to cut the budget for my departments, which included transportation, food service, custodians, facilities, etc. And so actually I had to cut, one of the first things I did was cut about $1 million out of my budgets, which was difficult. It required laying some people off, and it was a tough time, especially first starting out. Again, keeping budgets in line is an ongoing process.
Well, both of those outstanding answers. I like the idea that what you heard first from Superintendent about being diverse and just putting yourself in a position of being prepared. It's something Mr. Venturella, myself, and the staff members here have been saying. It's like keep your options open. Don't just kind of have this narrow sort of pathway that you go along and follow. Keep yourself open to options. Look at like an outcast of things that are out there that you should prepare yourself for as far as future jobs and things like that. So a lot of great information.
So let me just piggyback on that. In order to do that though, that means you have to take risks. And there are a lot of people that will somewhat coach you to be risk averse. Don't take a risk. That's what a lot of people say, because it's safe. And I say, take calculated risk, right? So there's a difference between taking a stupid risk, right, that you know is going to end up bad, that you shouldn't have did it in the first place, and it just doesn't make any sense. But there are some risks that you can think through. You might not be able to calculate it all the way out to its end, but it's worth taking a risk because the payoff is going to be great at the end of it. And the detriment to you will not be as harmful. Don't be risk averse. Try something different. When Mr. Venturella was talking about taking an IT class in college, that may be a risk for some of you. I tell you what, I did it, and it was a risk for me because I hate it. I hate it with a passion. I don't want anything to do with computers. I still don't really like computers, and I'm not that old. And I was learning how to program computers, and I didn't want anything to do with it. But I took the class anyway because it was a risk. It was something for me to try to learn something new. If you stay in your comfort zone, you will not get better. If you stay in your comfort zone, you will not get better. You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Anybody can do something that they always are used to doing and doing it well. Anybody can do that. The question is when you step out of your comfort zone and try to do something different, then what happens? Do you fold? Do you buckle? And do you say, well, I'll give up because I'm not good at it? Or do you say, you know what, I'm going to persevere through this and do the very best I can? People who come out of their comfort zones, you will find that those people are generally more successful than those who just stay in their comfort zone. But again, that is not universal. There's people all over the map. But I would encourage you for life is find opportunities to get out of your comfort zone and take a risk.
My question is more directed towards Mr. Ellison. You said that you were originally a lawyer and then you found a passion for education. Well, those were two career options that I'm looking into, but I'm having a hard time deciding which I would rather go into.
So the way it worked for me was, after I graduated from, I had a couple of options graduating from undergrad. I had a professor who wanted me to go and get a PhD in sociology and psychology. I had the opportunity to go to law school, and honestly, and this is, I'll admit it because I want you all to know the truth, the young lady who I was dating went to law school before me. She went 1 year ahead of me, and so I said, well, I'm going where she went. Okay, now that's not the best way to make decisions in life, but she actually turned out to be my wife. So that kind of worked out for me. I went to law school, and when I graduated from law school, I took a job in Columbus, and they assigned me to a section of the office, the education department. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, had never practiced law, let alone education law. And all of a sudden, from that experience, I was able to learn about education from a law perspective. I would say to you that there are certainly advantages to the traditional route of going to and getting the education classes and getting the pedagogy and learning your content. For me, what I learned and what I was able to do was get the critical thinking skills that I needed. And so that's what law school gave me. It gave me an opportunity to develop critical thinking skills, and then I was able to translate those critical thinking skills into leadership positions. Again, many different ways to get there. I'm a non-traditional educator in that I went to law school first. You can get there through any path that you choose. It's just a matter of how, your comfort level, what your gut tells you. And if your gut tells you to go to law school, then go to law school, because the education door won't be closed to you. And if your gut tells you to go to education, then law won't be closed to you. So just go ahead, because law schools will take education majors. So if you go in education and you major in whatever, get an education degree, you can apply, and they're looking for people with all different diverse backgrounds in order to go to law school. So you can have both of the best of both worlds.
Can I piggyback on that? Can I add to that? I just want to give you a little background. When I graduated from college, I couldn't find a job right away. And I went to my professor and I said, I'm down in Canton, and I think I'm going to go volunteer. And if I'm going to work for free, I'm going to work for the best that there is. And who's the best in my field? And he says, well, it's Pat Feldman, that's who you need to call. So I called what I thought was a him, ended up being a her. And I said, can I come in and meet with you? And she said, sure. And I said, I'd like to come in, I'd like to volunteer and work with you. And she says, well, we don't have a volunteer program. And I said, that's okay. I'm just going to come every day, 8 o'clock, and I'm going to work with you, because you're the best. And if I'm going to work for free, I'm going to work with the best. And she says, well, come on in then. I don't even think she knew how to answer me. So I went, and I spent the summer with Pat Feldman, and it was fabulous. And it actually ended up being that relationship that led to my first position at Ennis Majority. But I think years later, she retired maybe 6 years ago. And I called her on the phone and I said, Pat, I just want to tell you, how much I appreciate that time with you. And she says, do you know that since you came to see me, I've had an intern and we put an internship program in my department for the last, 10 years or whatever. So I would encourage you, if you can, to volunteer as much, to be around the people that are in those professions, and to go and volunteer and be part of it, to see how it feels to be there. I would encourage that for anybody seeking any profession, to go and volunteer and be involved and be engaged, coming in on a Sunday and doing this, being part of those things will lead you to very interesting people that will strike a chord with you and will change your pathway very often.
And to add to that, ironically, I was all set to go to law school. I had gotten my education degree, and then I had gotten married, and we were all of a sudden starting a family. And when you look at the field of education, the one nice thing about it, it really lends itself to rearing a family because of the schedule. And so sometimes you also need to look at your other goals besides your employment goals. And so, you know, I think especially in law and education, what Superintendent Allison said is absolutely true. Doors are not closed to you at either end. I actually have, there are teachers you have right now in this district who are going to law school at night and in the summer, you know, so or come from the field of law into education. So it's exciting. I will tell you, we need the brightest and best in education. We really do. So I'm kind of biased in that way.
Hello, I'm Malay Nelson. My question is, what are some of the best benefits of being an educator?
Some of the best
benefits of being an educator.
Okay, I'll go first on that one this time. The benefit for me is just having a positive impact on a young person's life, and then seeing that young person or people actually go on throughout life and actually achieve a lot of the goals that they set out. You know, and to me, that gives me the most benefit.
So I have, by most counts, people would say that, you know, I have a pretty hard job, but I tell you what's cool. Some of you have experienced this with me, and that is, it is cool to be around you guys. You guys have no idea how we feel about you and how we are excited to be around you. And so usually, especially in context of a sports program, yesterday, you know, I spent, you know, basically all day Saturday cheering on some of your colleagues playing softball. That is so fun. Just to be able to go out and scream for you guys and encourage you, that is the payoff for us. The payoff for me. The payoff for me is to see you guys achieve. It is also to watch you graduate and be able to say, wow, this young lady is going to this college, or this young man has got this job, or that. Frankly, if I didn't have that payoff, I wouldn't do the job because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I'll brag on my students. Well, obviously I teach the cosmetology program, so each year we go down and we take the licensing exam and the students go down. And currently we have 100% passing rate of those students that attend the exam and have for every year that I've taught. Yeah, and they're awesome. And that is the payoff for me. I guess that's my own personal graduation. In a way, I get to sit with those 10, 15 kids and watch them get their license and put their photo on it, and then go out. As the years go on now, I've got students that are taking my students as interns and working in salons. I've got a couple that rent booths, and it's amazing to go out and see how their life has been affected by that time. So.
Are there any trends that concern you? Any trends that will make this career or choice more or less attractive in the future?
I'd like to start with that one. And just to follow up on the last question, being a teacher is very rewarding, and I'm not putting it in my profile, but I think it's the second most important job besides being a parent, because you're a surrogate parent for those kids when they're in your classroom for those 45 minutes, 5 days a week, you know, so it's very important. But education has been changing a lot, standardized testing, you guys know all about that, and it's a time commitment for teachers, and you have to kind of figure out what's the most important thing for my students.
I think one trend, I know it has always been a part of education, but it seems more and more that education is becoming very political. I don't know how else to describe that. And decisions are made that impact how we do things, how students, their educational experience, the teacher educational experience, that sometimes they're not made for the reasons, you know, as Mr. Bush said, we always want to do what's best for students, and sometimes I question that because of the politics behind education. That's a trend I see.
I think we're seeing a change in how students interact with the material in terms of technology. So how they learn in terms of technology. So we kind of as teachers have to embrace some new platforms and processes that are different and unusual and hard, and it's kind of like I kind of want to do what Mr. Allison does and throw away the computer and say no more, I don't want to do this anymore some days, or when things aren't working and I'm trying to get something to boot up and the kids are like, let's go, this fun. So I've seen a lot of technology and how that impacts the way students learn and interact.
From a freshly graduated perspective, and I graduated in December, I didn't realize how much behind the scenes work went on until about a year ago. In my estimation, teaching is only about 25% of the work that's done in the school. The other 75%, and it may only be 70, but is behind the scenes stuff before the kids get to school, after the kids get to school, meetings throughout the day, paperwork. A lot of things that go on that students don't necessarily see. And that doesn't take away from the art and the beauty of teaching. It's just an added, you know, you have to have that foundation before you can move on. For me personally, I had a somewhat romanticized view of education. I thought it was show up to school in the morning, teach what you want, all the kids will sit and listen to you. But that's not quite the case. So going in and having those experiences through my undergrad program helped me to see, you know, there's more to teaching than just coming to school and teaching every day. And that, talking to some that have been in the profession for a long time, they say it's almost like a pendulum that swings back and forth. And as it, you know, as education progresses, it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. So by the time you guys get done with your grad work or undergrad work, it will be a new conversation.
All right, this question is directed towards the teachers that are in the classroom every day. Other than being able to teach effectively, what are the most important skills and abilities required to do the job?
First of all, you have to be flexible because things can change in a minute with, you know, fire drills or lockdowns. Someone didn't bring their homework and they're having a meltdown. I mean, everything, you have to be very flexible and able just to go with the flow, and you can't be real rigid because every child is different in your classroom every year. So you have to, you know, develop those skills to just roll with whatever's going on and, you know, keep moving through your lesson plan as best as you can. Time management is a big one, as he was saying earlier about all the paperwork and behind the scenes stuff. You know, many teachers take work home every evening, and they also have families to raise. You know, they work on the weekends. A lot of times they take classes in the summertime. So what you guys see for those 45 minutes, there's a lot of preparation behind that. So you have to be able to manage your time wisely.
This is very much a service industry. We serve students. So to piggyback on that flexibility, I think that every day is different, and students, you have to let go of I start the day with, I want to get this done, I have to make this phone call. My list kind of has a lot of I's, and I find that the I's are, we have to, the kids need, the kids forgot, remind the kids. My list changes by the end of the day to start with the students need, don't forget about the students, don't forget about this, did you remind about homework, did you? So it starts kind of selfish with the I want to do this, and it ends with they need, and recognizing that we serve students. That's our primary objective, is to serve you guys.
Believe it or not, as a teacher, you're part of a team. So you're within your grade level team if you're at the middle school level. Then you have your team of subject content areas. Then your special academic content teams. Then you can be on other teams within the district. And to be on any team, Mr. Robinson can tell you, you have to have that chemistry. You have to be able to have teamwork, to work together to get and move that train one car at a time to get your goal accomplished. And in working together, you have to have communication. That's where I see the biggest breakdown happening day-to-day is communication, making sure everybody's on the same page with what's going on. Because you can have just a deviation of 1 degree, but if everybody deviates 1 degree, by the end you started off at an acute angle and you ended at an obtuse angle. You have to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay, well, mine is like a two-pronged question. The first question is, how do you guys deal with all this stress, and where does your personal time come in? Because I see in Mr. Ellsworth's bio, it says a business manager holds a position of public trust responsible for millions of tax dollars. How do you deal with that stress of everyone depending on you, and where does your personal time come in?
Well, I can answer that. I actually have 7 children at home. It does require a lot of personal time and attention from me. You just have to balance it. Mine's not a 9 to 5 kind of job. I have to be available at all times. Winter time's tough because when it snows, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, driving around, making sure the roads are good enough to have school the next day. It's a balance. I have vacation time. I use it. I need it. That's something I'll tell you. Don't burn yourself out. You have to find that balance. I know when I'm going to have downtime. Sometimes that downtime gets interrupted, and that's okay. My cell phone's attached to my hip, and I know it could ring, and you just deal with that. But it's important to put your family first, and to take that time when you have it, and understand that one of the things that I love about my job is that not to denigrate people who work in the private sector, but when you work in the private sector, you're working generally for someone else's profit. In education and in government in general, you're working for the public, you're working for the greater good, whether that be in education or in my previous life in the city, working for the citizens of Kansas. So it helps alleviate that stress knowing that what I'm doing is a good thing.
That's an excellent question. And let me start by saying I'm really bad at it. And so I haven't had a vacation in 2 years, and my wife is none too happy. And so we were just discussing before I came here today what we're going to do for vacation. I do try pretty consistently to take care of myself physically. And I would say that that's something that everyone needs to do. You must take care of yourself physically, because if you don't, then you're not any good regardless of how many hours you put in. So it's important that you find a routine that allows you to exercise your mind, your body, and your soul, and make time for that. I've learned how to do things like get books on tape. So every time I'm in my car, no matter if I'm in there for 5 minutes or a half hour, I listen to that book. And that gives me just a small window of time to not think about something that probably could be stressful. I make sure I get to the gym 2 to 3 to 4 times a week, depending on what the week looks like. Because life is short, and you have to find that balance between really working really hard, but also recognizing that life is short. And for those of you who don't know, I learned that in a hard way because I came to this position because my predecessor died at the age of 51. And when somebody dies at the age of 51, and you find yourself now taking over where he was, you go to yourself, wow, life is short. So you better make sure that you pay attention to that.
When I first started, one of my principals said, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and we need you standing at the end of the school year just as tall as you were standing at the beginning of the school year. And I was a runner, and so that really, really made sense to me. And so whatever it took, you know, sometimes you just jump in so hard, you want to do all this and you're working all these hours, but he kept saying, I need you standing at the end of the school year, I need you standing, and when the students walk across the stage, we need you standing there, and that always made sense to me.
My question is for Mr. Garrity. So your job, well, I'm not going into education, but I do want to be a nurse for a hospice care department. And every time I tell someone that, they're like, well, that it takes a special person to do that. And I'm aware that it takes a special person to work with kids who are not able, like you said, to learn the same way you learn. So what is some advice that you can give to me as I pursue my dreams?
Patience, deep breaths. It takes what Ms. Savage was just saying, it is a marathon. You can't necessarily see the jump kids make in one day. It takes a whole year. I've been working with a particular student since the beginning of December on one skill, and he's just now really picking it up, but it's taken that whole time to get there. So really being patient, really taking it day by day, not focusing too much on, oh, when is he going to get this, when is he going to do that. Just take it one day at a time. And really just trying to find some way you can connect with every individual you work with or service. I try and shake every kid's hand in the morning that I work with, ask them how their night was, how their day was, you know, what did you have for dinner, what did you watch on TV last night. Just finding some way to connect with each student so you really feel like you have that relationship. You have to go to them and say, you know, give them some bad news or tell them something they don't necessarily want to hear. You have that rapport built already.
My question is directed towards Mr. Allison. Being superintendent, we know you have a lot of pressure on you to make rash decisions. How do you come to make those choices and decisions that you do that affect all of us?
So there's a sort of practical process of that, which is I have a lot of people that are part of the team. So let's take an example. Let's say I made a decision to merge the high schools. Let's use that as an example. You know, probably one of the two phone calls I made first was to her and to him. I had to ask her, Peggy, because she supervises the high schools. So I had to ask her, okay, this is what I see. Do you see the same thing? Are you, from your perspective, is what my vision of the situation accurate or inaccurate? And then we have that dialogue. And then I have to ask Mr. Ellsworth, I have to say, okay, so can I practically do this? Like, can we actually physically make this happen? So there's a team of people that I meet with. I meet with a group of senior staff, basically every Monday individually, and then on Tuesdays we meet as a collective. And those are the people that I go to help me make decisions. Because I can't do it by myself. And then I have a board of education who I consult as well. So that's the practical piece. But the deeper part of that question is not about who I talk to. It's about, really the conviction to make a decision. And here's the key. And this goes back to the conversation I talked about being risk averse. Sometimes you have to make decisions as a leader. And when you make decisions as a leader, I guarantee you that there's going to be a subset that's going to love your decision, and there's going to be a subgroup of people who are absolutely not happy with your decision. And the question is, are you willing to be a leader and make the decision, right? Not make a wild, crazy decision because you want to take what word did I use? A calculated risk. But guarantee that if you make a decision, somebody's going to be unhappy with it. So the question becomes, for you as future leaders, will you freeze when it's time to make a decision because somebody's going to be happy, not unhappy with it? Or will you take the information that you gather from your team and will you do the thing that you believe is best for the organization? Tough stuff, no question about it. And you have to have, my father told me last weekend, he said, you know what, I would not want your job. Thanks, Dad. Thank you, I appreciate that. But what he was saying was, you gotta make tough decisions. And it's not just about high schools, there's a lot of tough decisions we have to make every day. But I also will tell you this, and this is personal to me, I love it. So I thrive in situations where it's tough because I want to see if I can do it. And I want to see if I can do it well because I'm not interested in being comfortable. I'm interested in actually going out and challenging myself and making it and making this district better because as some of you know, I was you. Okay, I was you. So I'm a graduate of this district. I went to Hartford. I went to McKinley as well. And so I want to do, my only goal is to make it better for me.
That's great. Okay, I like what you were saying there about going through and having a group or cohort work with you with making decisions, helping to get their intake or advice or their counsel. A lot of folks here, you got to understand that collaborative partnership that they talked about earlier is something, a skill set that we need here. The partnership, the collaboration that you have, the networking piece, we have that so that is an important part that we want you to hone those skills so that you're prepared when you go into college. You're prepared when you go into your first career so you understand what's happening as far as you being a part of a group to come up with this great dynamic to work toward the end game, to try to accomplish the goal that you've set before. So a lot of times you can't survive if you're just making a decision on your own and without anybody's input or advice or counsel. You gotta be aware of having some input, getting somebody to help you hone what you're coming up with this idea and then running forward with that.
This question can go to anybody on the panel, but what do you wish you knew but you didn't when you first started your career?
Well, when I first started I was one of the, in my mind, I was thinking like, you know, I'm going to change the culture of education, especially in inner city districts. In a matter of months, I'm going to get, and this is me, I'm going to get us to where we're graduating 100% of the kids, and that was my goal. But what I realized, as it was mentioned earlier, it's a marathon. It's a lot of things that has to happen over a process, over a time period. So, and that was one of my biggest challenges too. So if I'd known that when I came in, I think I would have probably been less stressed. But you know, and that thinking comes from being a coach. Coach various sports, and as a coach, when you coach a team, you want 100% of your players to give it. That's your expectation. So again, that would have taken away a lot of the stress and probably some of the gray hairs I have now if I've known that when I started.
I think there are times when you lose, and it's hard to lose, right? It's hard. Sometimes there are students that start in my program and decide that it isn't for them, and make the choice to move on into something else. There are times when I want something to go a certain way and it just doesn't. And learning how to lose gracefully, learning how to deal with a disappointment well, and move on, because I still have 19 other kids that need me to move on and not wallow in my disappointment. Sometimes you lose. It's not fun. I think in coaching, sometimes you lose. We started with the idea, right, we're going to change the world. All these kids are going to be different just because they knew me. And they're not. And they're unique individuals that make unique decisions of their own accord, and sometimes it's not what you want. I'm learning that as a parent. Sometimes they do things you don't want them to do, and they do it before you can stop them, and you lose. And how to get over that and move on and continue going forward. I think I wish I would have known more of that, so I could have dealt with that better in my early part of my career.
And along the lines of what both of you said, as you become a leader, you have to develop thick skin. I hate to say that, but as Superintendent Allison said, not everyone is going to agree with your decision, and I wish I would have known that in a way, because when you're teaching or when you're leading anyone, you can't wear your heart on your sleeve. People are counting on you to be composed in situations. You have to act like everything's fine, and perhaps it isn't. You can't bring your personal life into your job. But what I have always said is I don't believe I've ever developed thick enough skin in this career, but yet I don't want to, because if my skin were that thick, I couldn't be the person who I am. And so it's difficult to find that balance, but you do need thick skin, or thicker skin.
Hi, my name is Joe Butler, freshman here at Early College. I had a question for anyone on the panel who started out at a different career other than education moved in. I just wanted to know, what kind of benefits did you have from your last career or anything that moved over into this one, and what made you want to go in education?
Okay, well, my experience before I came to the school district, I worked for the mayor's office. I worked for two different mayors, Mayor Watkins and Mayor Creighton. And I had several different jobs in the city. I started out as a budget and labor relations analyst, which sounds kind of boring, but it was actually a lot of fun. And then I was the director of management and budget for Mayor Watkins, and then I became the director of public service for Mayor Creighton. Those jobs, the service director's job in particular, really prepared me for this job. That job in the city is responsible for the water department, the street department. We were building roads, we were repairing bridges, repairing water lines, sewer lines. And so that really prepared me for what I came to here in my responsibility for our facilities. We were building new buildings. And so that prepared me. The benefits of coming here, it was a more personal decision to come into education. You know, my dad was a school teacher for 30 years. It was near and dear to my heart, but being able to come here, in particular, to Kansas City schools. I grew up in a district, I went to Worley, I was in the CHAP program, went to Lehman, and also and graduated from McKinley. And so it was very personal to me to be able to do what I felt was a good thing for my hometown and for the students who live here.
So real quick, and then I know we got at least 2 other people who came. But for me, I think it's kind of the reason why you all are here. You're going to go to college pretty soon. Even while you're here now, you're going to get content information. You're going to get information about certain subjects. But the reason why you're here on a Sunday afternoon and it's beautiful outside is because you want to come and pick up some skills, which are different than content. When the key is it really doesn't matter what you do so long as you maximize the skills that you pick up from what you're doing. And so every position that you hold and every opportunity that you get, there's some kind of skill you can pick up, whether it's collaboration, whether it's critical thinking, whether it's teamwork, whether it's learning how to persevere, to have grit. All of those things are available. It doesn't matter. So, you know, when you are doing whatever you're doing, make sure you keep track of what skills am I picking up and am I developing, and what skills do I need to go to the next position. Skills are what move people along. There's a lot of content that you need, but you need to have skills. And so pick up those skills anytime you can.
And for me, prior to being in education, I worked in the IT field at a software development company. Prior to that, as you can see in my bio, I had so many other jobs where I had to just list the categories instead of the specific jobs. But from each of those jobs, as Mr. Allison said, you know, you develop skills. Skills that you use later on, you use all the time. For me, I use them all the time. And as Mr. Ellsworth said, that, you know, one job in particular, working with the street department, you know, a lot of those skills I learned from that job, along with the IT field, actually I use now, whether it's in school or out of school. So, as was mentioned earlier, the best thing that you can take into college and throughout your career is being flexible. Flexible in your thinking, just, you know, to have that whereabout to where, okay, even though I know I'm focused on this path could veer off to the right, or could be several paths that I can go down.
I'm not sure that this is a skill set, but I will tell you that coming out of industry into teaching gave me a very grateful heart. I was very grateful for your attention, your time, the opportunity to spend time with students, the funny things they said and did. I was very grateful. I'm still very grateful that I get to come in every day and have that experience. And I appreciate my job more because I have a grateful heart that I'm lucky, right? Lucky to be able to do this every day. And it changes the way that I feel about my day when I can appreciate the small things that students do, the small things that my bosses do, the small things that I appreciate that more, being in another industry and coming into education.
So, while in college, while doing my undergrad work, I worked at a commercial sheet metal contractor, and we were responsible for jobs ranging in the price range of $75,000 up to $500,000. So I started as just a truck driver and shop help, but within a year, I was the manager of the shop. There was the owner, the estimator, and then there was me. So at age 18, I found myself in charge of, at the time, there were 32 guys that I was over. Now, 32 guys that have been doing that trade for anywhere from 5 to 25 years is a lot different than having 30 kids in a class that this is all they know, they're a lot more manageable. So I had to find strategies that could motivate these guys that were double my age and had double my experience while I was still in school, while I was still managing it. And that's what we try to get all of our students now, is generalizing these skills. So time management, communication, just like we talked about earlier, teamwork, getting all those people on the same page. When you're running a job that's $100,000, it's not a whole lot of money, but when you're running a classroom, when you have kids' lives at stake and their futures, you really have to plan every moment. Every moment of the day has to be calculated, and you need to know.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I was just wondering that if you got any advice throughout your career that stuck with you.
One thing sticks out for me. One day when I was in the city and I was complaining about, I think I was complaining about city council or something like that. The former safety director, Joe Concado, said to me, if the job was easy, they wouldn't need you. And that really stuck with me. So when things get tough, it's one thing that I always remember, is that I'm here for a reason. I'm here because it is tough, and because it doesn't just happen automatically. And so that's an important piece of advice to remember.
My dad always told me when I was younger, he worked for the railroad, he was, a blue-collar worker, and he always told us, he never went to college, but find what you like to do, what you really love, what is your passion, and do that. Maybe you want to be a doctor, but you're not going to be able to because you don't like blood or you don't like to, but being a doctor is very nice, but find what you love to do, and what you're good at. And it took me a while because I didn't come into teaching until I was almost 30 years old, but I finally realized that's where I need to be. So, find what you love and do that for your career.
Hi, my question is towards Ms. Smith and also Ms. Pond. Dealing with 9th through 12th graders, I think Ms. Pond is juniors and seniors, do you try to incorporate certain skills or lesson plans such as teamwork, competitiveness, so they can use them out in the real world for getting employment, getting certain colleges?
Well, and my students, we implemented an internship program that my students participated in. Again, back to volunteering and my belief that the students need to get out of the classroom and kind of see the real world. So that internship program does a lot to show them what a salon is actually like. I don't place students. They go out, not that I wouldn't, but it's part of that learning how to go out and present yourself and fill out an application and find your own position. And the last 10 years, they've all done that. They've all accomplished it. So some of those, actually getting out of the classroom, I find, is the best way to teach some of those skill sets, to be able to go into industry and placing them in a salon and getting them out of their comfort zone. And the first day, I have students the first day and say, Ms. Pond, I don't know what this is going to be like. I'm not sure I want to go to the salon. And by the end, I'm like, okay, your internship's over. You have to come back to the class. Oh, just one more Friday. I said, no, it's over. You have to come back. They really like it and they love it. So getting them away from me, because I'm a little bit of a mother hen, and on their own and in industry makes a big difference for some of those skill sets.
The taking risk thing is kind of important when I'm teaching them Spanish because for most people, learning a foreign language is very hard. So they're always afraid to make mistakes, and the only way you get better at something is if you make mistakes and you correct those mistakes. So taking the risk to read something that it's a foreign language to you. So there's a lot of words you're not gonna know, and then kids are just afraid to take risks, and they're afraid to guess. Don't be afraid to guess on something, because most of the times when you guess at an answer or something, a lot of times your mind really does know it, but you're psyching yourself out, you're nervous or whatever. So I think it goes back to that whole taking risks thing.
We're very unique too, that my students actually have physical contact with each other on a daily basis and do each other's hair and nail and skin and facials, and it's kind of a unique world down there in my classroom a little bit. So learning to work with each other, learning to listen to each other, to communicate well, time management, because when the bell rings, you're leaving, even if half your head's in rollers. It's time to go, gotta go science, kind of thing. So we're a unique world down there, and I think all the career tech classes are unique in that way.
Can I go back to the last question about advice that someone gave you? So I don't know that this is advice somebody gave me directly, but they taught it to me, and it is advice that I am teaching my own kids now. And it's basically that you are entitled to nothing but to work hard. That is the only thing that you're entitled to. We have an entitlement society where people think that you are owed something. You are owed nothing but to work hard. And so, work hard. And don't worry about what everything else is or what you think you should have. If you work hard, I won't guarantee you 100% of the time, but most of the time that work hard, by working hard, it will pay off one way or another.
I think one issue that I run into is like I'm dealing with students in the class or whatever, that they don't know what they don't know. They don't know what it takes to get from here to there. It would be nice if they would see all the skills or all of the parameters, all the things that are out there to help them prepare themselves by doing the right thing in class, taking the right courses, picking the right major so that they get it right into that job and whatnot. So that was my ramble. I just went off a little ramble. But I'm going to ask each of you on the panel, I'll start with you, Spencer. If there's a piece of advice that you can give these young people here as they are wide-eyed and looking toward all the opportunities that exist for them. Sometimes you look so much for the light, you forget about what you need to live, what you need to make a living, to be a productive member of society. So I'm kind of pigeonholing it. But what piece of advice would you be able to give these wonderful folks as they're looking for the next step, and that's getting out of high school and going into something to prepare them for a career? What piece of advice, if any, do you have for them?
The biggest thing I would say is get the most experience you can in the broadest amount of fields possible. So if you have I have a little bit of interest over here in the medical field, go take a day, go take a week, go find somebody to hang out with, volunteer with, like Ms. Pond was saying. Go into whatever you like, to whatever you're doing, and check it out. Get some hands-on experience in it before you make that commitment. A specific example, I had a girl that we went through our whole undergrad program together. She got to student teaching, did 2 weeks, and said, this isn't for me. I'm not being a teacher. I'm going to go major in something else. And she had spent 5.5 years completing her undergrad program. So if you can get in somewhere early and check it out with your hands-on experience, that would be the best thing I can do.
The advice I would give you is, as you're going into college, again, the flexibility piece is important, but deciding on a career or a major to go visit those careers, visit those jobs, and as Ms. Pond said, see if you can just spend a day or two to get an idea of what that job actually entails. Spencer said, you won't run that risk of going into an internship or a student teaching opportunity and then deciding that you don't want to do it. So go visit careers, the ones that you have in mind, and as was mentioned earlier, choose a career that you would work for free. And this is what I tell my kids. If you can choose a career, you can think of a career that you would go to work every day without pay, and that's the career you should choose. And surround yourself with positive people.
I'm going to take a minute just to tell you a story. I had a student when I first started teaching, was 9 years ago, and he was little. And he came in with his dad, he came in on Family Fun Night, and he said, I'm going to be a cosmetologist. And I said, well, good for you. He said, you're going to see me in 6 years. I mean, he was little. And I said, okay. And the next year we had family, I call it Family Fun Night, but family engagement night where they come in the next year. And he came back, and I literally watched this child grow up. And sure enough, he signed up for my program, and last year he graduated, and he's working in a salon. And I remember thinking, even at that young age, to engage with the people around you. Engage with the people that can help you. I think we sit back sometimes and we let the world happen to us. And instead of pursuing, engage in conversation, engage in opportunities, engage in volunteering, engage with your instructors, your professors, engage in events like this, to participate and engage in a daily effort with whoever you're around, engage with them and talk to them, express to them what you want. You'd be surprised, somebody might say, well, you know, I've got an uncle, I've got a brother, I've got a sister. Miss Savage is coming in this afternoon. Why don't I see if I can have you talk with her? All of a sudden, people realize what you want, what you're looking for, and things start to happen for you. So I remember Brandon coming in, and like I said, he maybe was 5th grade or something. He was very young, and he engaged even then and said, I'm coming. And sure enough, he did, and he pursued that, and he made that dream happen. So I would encourage you to participate and engage with the people around you and the material and just any opportunity that you have to take it, to do it.
So I've said a lot of sort of the advice, and so I'll summarize again by basically saying, first of all, you're going to go out to a world and there's going to be a lot of people. It's sort of like traffic on the highway, and they're all going to be driving in the same direction. And so the question you need to analyze in everything you do is this the right direction? Is there a new or better way to do it? And if so, what are the risks that I take to do it? And then try something different. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And I don't mean don't be afraid of the big bad world. I mean don't be afraid to go out and set yourself apart. Because what will happen is people will look at you a little crazy at first and go, well, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to say that. Because that's not what everybody else is doing. But don't be afraid to take a risk and say, you know what, just because somebody else or the whole mob is moving that way doesn't mean that that's necessarily the best way. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And when it's not, you don't have to be afraid to say, no, that's not the way to do it. I'm going to try something else.
I think that what I would advise you to do is not let your mistakes define you. It's how you look at mistakes. I look at mistakes as opportunities to learn. We're all going to make mistakes, especially if you're going to take risks. And you learn from them, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you get going again. It's all about how you handle it. And that's up to each individual. So don't let your mistakes define you. Just keep moving forward. Superintendent Allison always talks about Nemo. Should I tell him, keep swimming, is that what he thinks? You just keep swimming, and just keep swimming.
Yeah, I would say to always be positive. Don't talk yourself out of things. Sometimes we have a tendency to think that we can't do certain things, or that something's going to be hard, or someone's going to think, poorly of us if we do things. So always be positive. Always be confident in your abilities, and know that you can. If there's something out there that you don't know how to do, you can learn to do it. There were a lot of things about my job when I started I didn't know how to do, and I worried, am I ever going to figure it out? You do. With perseverance and hard work, you can figure out how to do anything. So don't let negative thoughts hold you back.
I would say surround yourself with people that you want to be like. Because if you're hanging out with, when you're in college, if you're hanging out with the kids who are cutting class, or just hanging out and not going to the library and studying and turning in their projects late, you don't want to be like that. So if you surround yourself with the people who are doing the right thing, you also will fall into that and also be successful.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? Surround yourself with people too that challenge you. Challenge the way that you think, that think differently from you, that kind of make you want to be better, do better, see more.
If we have one more or two more questions. Okay, so after this question, we wanted to present our panelists with something and then thank them for being a part of the day.
How are you able to deal with ignorant or stupid things that students do on a regular basis that they say or do that just makes you angry?
Okay. I guess I'll feel one. The thing I did was always remind myself that I was once that ignorant, stupid student. And realize that that's, is that what you said, ignorant, stupid student? I don't want to add any more names. Okay. And just know in your mind that it's a process, a maturation process. And you once were them, as Mr. Allison said.
I've learned how to forget things. I've learned how to not let it sit there the next day or the next day or so forth, and just say, wow, that was one. I don't want one decision, certainly, to define me, and I'm not going to let one decision define you. So we're going to have the conversation where it was a bad decision, and then we're going to move on, and I'm going to forget about it. Hopefully you're going to forget about it, because we really don't want to spend our whole lives having those times that we did rotten things define us or overshadow the great things that we do. And my students do a lot of great things, so I've learned to, I guess, forget and forgive.
In middle school specifically, I keep in mind every day that these are just kids. They're 11 through 14-year-olds. I don't expect them to act like adults. A person I talk to pretty consistently is Ms. Pack, our Director of Special Education, and she told me the biggest thing about middle school is impulse control. These kids think of something and they do it. There's not a whole lot of contemplation on it. So when you sit and think about that for a moment, you begin to understand, okay, I see why that kid did that. They just thought of it, they did it. So keeping in mind that they are just kids. Now that's the part where you sit and have the teachable moment. You sit and say, hey, in high school, blah, 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 whatever. But keeping in mind that kids are kids.
Yeah, forgive and forget, like Ms. Pond was saying, you have to, the next day, just move on. You have to teach every kid, whether they say stupid, goofy things or they're the perfect student. You still have to teach every child in that classroom, so you just have to get over that and move on the next day.
Probably for me too, I have to learn not to laugh. because sometimes it's funny and it will encourage the behavior. And I have to like, okay, I have to kind of turn my face and not laugh because students do some funny things. Really, safety aside, obviously. First and foremost, when we use the term stupid, I'm not talking about anything that would put them in danger in any way. But safety aside, I have to teach myself not to laugh. And sometimes I fail, and I laugh. So, I'm working on it.
Okay, we have one more question, and then after this question, those students that have been selected to go ahead and give the gift to the panelists, you can move at that time and go ahead and take care of that.
Al, our students have told us one of their biggest stressors, particularly the graduates, the seniors that are going into college, is the absolute cost of college and incurring that debt. Do you have any, your opinion, number one, of the increased cost in college and those demands today, and any advice while they try to take on this debt?
On my way here, we, in addition to talking about vacation, we were talking about our debt, because those two things go hand in hand. Like, it costs money to go on vacation, so you got to figure out things like how you're going to pay for it. So unfortunately, you all, as are all of your colleagues, are living in a time where college costs are completely out of control. You've already selected, in some ways, a program to help you offset that. And you are in a program and have an opportunity to defray a significant amount of that cost. So continue to take advantage of this unique program. Outside of that, one of the things that you can always do is, if you have to take on debt, and I'm telling you this from personal experience, if you have to take on debt, pay the debt as soon as possible back. Pay it back. So when you get your first job and you feel like now you got a little money in your pocket and they're going to offer you deferments and they're going to say, you don't have to pay this back. Pay the debt back. The key to debt is the longer it stays with you, the worse it gets. Right? So if you can get rid of it as soon as you can and prioritize the goal of getting rid of the debt, the sooner you will be free from that debt and then be able to have the freedom to do what you want to do. It is a real legitimate concern, the cost of college. But that is one way to do it, is keep in mind. And people will do it. And the last thing I will say is, you're going to go to school and you'll be 18 and they will throw in your mailbox a credit card application. Okay? They will put it in your mailbox as a college student. You will be really, really, really tempted to do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because that's what they call bad debt. And that bad debt will hurt you long term. But you will be, especially as college students, you will be a target for that. Don't do it. And I did it, so I'm speaking from experience. And the only thing that got me out of it was my dad yelled at me and paid it. Okay? But that's not where you want to be. So don't do that.
Real quick, I would tell you first to pursue any scholarships or grants or anything that you can get that will help you. I know that when I was in college, and this is for my master's degree, you could take up to a certain amount. So maybe they would say you could have $10,000 for the semester and maybe I only needed $3,000. Just take the $3,000. don't take 10, just take the 3 to pay the classes. And I remember on the phone with her, I said, well, why are you giving me 10? And she says, well, you can have up to 10. And I said, but how much are my classes? And she says, well, you know, I don't know, 3,600 or 46, whatever it was. And I says, well, why do I want 10? And she said, but you can have 10. And I said, well, I don't, why? Just do the 3,600. Just do whatever you need to be able to take the class, to be able to get the book. Used books are okay. We don't need everything to be brand new. My husband likes everything shiny and new and spanking new. And I said, no, we can do used. So, and used computer, used laptop, anything that will work and function doesn't have to be brand new. I know new is attractive, but it doesn't have to be brand new. So just take what you need and go from there, because you're gonna have to pay it back someday. And that 10,000 becomes 20, 30, 40, 50, and beyond. So just take what you need to be successful. And you can always save money. Just on a side note, I know that I was at Kent State, and there were a lot of jobs there on the campus, student jobs that you can take on the campus. So I wasn't having to try to travel or go off campus with gas or any kind of expense to get to a job off campus. So you might want to pursue something there locally if you wanted to work while you were in school.
One other thing is to pay attention to the kinds of loans you're getting. There are 2 kinds of college loans available. There's subsidized college loans and unsubsidized college loans. A subsidized loan, you don't, it doesn't earn interest while you're in school. So those are the best kind, because you only have the principal, which is the actual amount you borrowed, that will be, the interest doesn't start to accumulate until after you graduate. An unsubsidized loan, the interest actually accumulates while you're in school. And then that interest compounds. If you don't pay that interest, it actually, what they call capitalizes, it becomes part of your other balance. So pay very close attention to the kinds of student loans that you're getting. And if you have an opportunity, if you have a part-time job in the summer, and you have some extra money, and you have an unsubsidized loan, pay that interest. Because then it doesn't accumulate for you at the end, and it really can save you a lot of money.
As someone who starts to get to pay back his loans in June, talk to someone with financial planning skills, or someone that is their profession. A lot of times you think, well, I'm just going to fill out this budget sheet, or I'm going to use what I learned in government class to budget. That's not necessarily enough. Sometimes you need to go seek professional advice on something as big as credit that can really chart a lot of the course for the rest of your life financially.
So I did that, and then I ignored the guy. Okay, so that's good advice, but then you have to actually follow the advice that the guy tells you, because I didn't, and so I paid the cost for it. So that is great advice, but then you have to actually take the advice and use it to your advantage.
I by no means am an expert on this, but I know that when I went to buy a car for the first time after I graduated, and they pulled up my credit, and she says, well, you've got 21 loans. And I said, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? And she says, you've got 21 loans. And I said, well, show me. Because all they did is they sent me one bill, one monthly payment, one bill. And she hands me the paper, and there's literally 21 loans. Some for $500, some for $1,200, one for $8,000, one for, right? And I wasn't aware, and I wasn't engaged, and I didn't understand until I'm sitting there across from this person. And I'm thinking, well, this one here for $200, I could have paid that off, but it's earning its own amount of interest. And the one for $86, when I pay the $150 a month, let's say, the loan for $86 is only getting $2 on its portion. And they take that $150 and they put a little bit on each portion of these various loans. And I think, well, if I would have known, if I would have seen it, I could have paid the $86, or I could have paid the $112 on these mini loans. I had no idea, because I get a bill every month for $100 and whatever it is, and it goes out, and I didn't realize until I sat across from this woman that I had 21 different loans, however that worked, and I don't know, but that were essentially in my name from my time getting my master's degree. So being aware when you take that money and where it is, and like Mr. Ellsworth said, where it's, how if it's accruing interest, if it's not accruing interest, being involved in that and engaged is important.
And always pay your highest interest rate loans first. You will notice, because when you do go to college, there are multiple loans. There's a loan for every year you're there, sometimes for every semester. And those interest rates will vary. If you have the opportunity to pay your higher interest rate loans first, that will end up saving you money in the long term.
Okay. You guys, let's go ahead and thank the panelists. And also with that, we have some gifts over here. Those students that have the names, go ahead and give a gift to the folks for the red bags. That would be Mrs. Smith. So the person that's for Mrs. Smith, you can go up and present her with her bag. Mr. Ellsworth, Mrs. Pond, Mr. Bush, and Mr. Garrity. The reason why they got the gift they're about to receive is because these folks have been joined a camp as far as this setting goes, their first time. So again, we want to thank them for coming out this first time and being part of this wonderful education panel. The second one that we have, this is for the group of the folks that have been with us more than 2 times. That'll be Mrs. Savage and Mr. Allison. So again, this comes from us, the students, to you, and thanking you very much for coming out here, and again, thank you. And now I have Mr. V with some closing remarks and some other information.
Thank you so much. This is beyond my expectations. I'm just sorry it took so long for us to do a panel on education. I always thank Mr. Bruner because without the college-ready piece, the career-ready piece isn't there. So I thank you for that same success. And my wife and I interviewed, we didn't interview, we helped at the Early College Academy yesterday, some 140 new students coming up through the Early College Academy, and boy, we have some wonderful students to look forward to for the next 6, 7, 8 years as they go through this process. So even myself, not being in education, I feel the same kind of energy, the same kind of rush that you do when I see these young students and the opportunities that they have. So thank you very much for all you do. I have so much here too. We do a reflection the next month on the previous month as we did today. So I have a whole page full of great stuff to talk to you guys about. But you have 3 pages. So yeah. So maybe you can do the reflection because I only have 1 page. But, and I think one of the things that hit me the hardest was the comment about hard work. Boy, I'll tell you, nothing replaces hard work. I will guarantee you that you will exceed your wildest dreams and expectations if you outwork everyone else. You say, how can I do that? Whatever you choose to do, wherever you choose to go, whatever lane you choose to be in, you outwork everybody else, and I guarantee you, you will blow past your expectations in your lifetime. That's probably the best advice and to give. We have a young lady. I won't mention her name, but you probably know who she is. We were looking at her profile. This was about a year and a half ago. I said, "You have no work experience." I said, "We need to do something for your profile." Absolutely smart, intelligent young lady. She took a job in housekeeping. The job lasted minimum wage. Job lasted about 6-7 months. Opportunity came along. She worked her tail off. She took a job in accounting in the Freshmont Corporation. Worked her tail off. This summer she will have a job in engineering at a Fortune 500 company. And I have no doubt she's going to work her tail off. That's how she's getting ahead. And in addition to taking advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to you, but nothing replaces working hard, trust me. Okay, two real short housekeeping. Your books. Could you do us a favor, because when we lose your 10 cards or whatever, we sometimes have a hard time identifying whose binders or who. Could you write on someplace, right in the either the front or the first page of your binder, unless you're like Jada, look at this. That's what I'm talking about. That's how to mark your binder. Could you just write your name in there, please? And then all the new students, relative, the students that were brought on in the last couple of months, could you raise your hand? Okay, could you see Mrs. Bruder before you leave? She has, there's 4 videos that you're going to have to watch on the website, and she has a list of questions for those 4 videos. It's not rocket science, but you do need to watch these videos. They are important videos. I believe it's Dress for Success, correct? The perils of social media. So that is a very powerful session on social media. What else? The Timken panel, and that was marketing, human resources, and I forgot the other career path. It's 3 career paths in the one with the one corporation. And financial health 101. Okay, those sessions we think are critical for your success in the program and your career. So thank you very much. We ended a few minutes early. Please take that opportunity to talk to the people on the panel if you have specific questions. Well, how many of you in this audience are interested in an education career or in working with adolescents? And raise your hand. Raise your hand high. Hi. Okay. Take this opportunity, talk to them. If you have any specific questions, thank you for coming on such a nice day. I apologize, but you've also been here when it's snowing outside, so, you know, good with the bad. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.